Meteorologist Casey Cloud here in the Weather Center on this Sunday. We are watching a flash flood warning in play for parts of Leon County here until about 6:30. Watching the potential for some heavier rain to continue to occur over areas that have already gotten maybe 2.5 inches in the last hour along Appalachian Parkway there on the east side of Tallahassee. So we need to be kind of careful here. Let's go ahead and zoom on in, talk about what's going on as we look over the last hour. You see here some spots, maybe according to some radar estimates here, over about 4 inches possibly may have occurred here toward us, Old St. Augustine Road. This could be overdoing it some, but you get the idea here. Something we're not used to really talking about here in the summertime too much is that flash flooding potential, but we're seeing that come to fruition, it seems, over parts of Leon County right now in the Tallahassee area. You see the heavy rain continuing to fall here around Old St. Augustine Road in Tallahassee in Leon County. So got to be really careful here as we're looking toward Appalachian Parkway here as well, as these rainfall totals continue to kind of mount here. I just gotta again use those flash flood warning precautions here by moving to higher ground if necessary. Of course, if you're in a safe spot, just stay where you're at. But if you are in a more dangerous situation, you want to move to higher ground. Turn around, don't drown. Of course, if you see a road covered in water, and then just 6 inches of flowing water could knock you down. So that's something to keep in mind here as well. As I go ahead and zoom back on out a little bit, you see heavy rain, some lightning here around the Tallahassee, Leon County area in general, but that flash flood warning is in that dark green polygon here. You see that threat here for that flash flooding potential to about 6:30 in parts of Tallahassee, in parts of Leon County here. This warning does in fact include FAMU, the Railford Greenway area, Appalachian Regional Park, Tom Brown Park, over towards Southwood, even to Governor Square Mall there, Indian Head Acres, Tallahassee Memorial Hospital, the North Florida Fairgrounds, Bel Air, as well as the Kelowna Estates, the State Capitol Complex, Kleeman Plaza, the Leon County Civic Center, Bragg Stadium there too. So just remember to turn around, don't drown. If you see a flooded roadway in this area, it's something we're not necessarily accustomed to dealing with here this time of year outside of a tropical system, but we're seeing that right now as I look at velocity. There is a little bit of wind in here as well, but nothing extreme. We'll keep our eyes on it. There was a potential for a severe thunderstorm warning to be issued earlier with a line kind of off toward the west here that looked a little more organized, but right now it's more about that rainfall threat, that freshwater threat from that flooding potential. So gotta be careful here. As I zoom on out, you see some storminess toward the south, but again, non-severe overall, except for that flash flood warning here in play. Maybe gusts according to the Weather Service in excess of 40 possible through here. It looks like about 5:45, but again, we're watching more for that flash flooding potential. Now, if you're watching from north central and northeast Florida, you might be wondering what's going on. So let me go ahead and break away here from the last flood warning and move you on over toward our other source right now. I'll tell you what's going on here as we get toward north central northeast Florida. Our worst storm right now looks to be down in Marion County. As we look here, not far from Dunellen, just to the east a little bit. Dunellen's okay, but just to the east here, as we're getting looking like areas here west of 75 kind of getting into the accent. So just got to be careful, got to be cognizant. Maybe some tiny little hail there. Nothing too worrisome though right now. Of course, that cloudy ground lightning can be hazardous, dangerous in any type of storm, and that's a storm we're keeping our eyes on there. And then toward Jacksonville, we had a storm earlier. I did not break in for that as we were kind of watching it. Here it was more of a downburst type signature within radar. Things transpired pretty quickly. We just thought it's a situation that was going to kind of come and go real quick, and maybe not on the inner edge there of that severe thunderstorm warning type of scenario, really. So more of a severe thunderstorm warning as we're getting to a more populated area. Did have some power outages, a little bit of damage in an isolated spot, but overall not a widespread severe weather threat not a long-term, long duration severe the threat in Duval County. We only had a couple hundred customers who lost power there according to DEA, and that's honestly pretty low, really low for a severe thunderstorm. Earlier on, as we look back in the timeline, we've seen situations where we get a couple thousand out of power from a non-severe storm here in areas like Jacksonville, Tallahassee, quite a bit. So that's something that we just decided not to break in for. Of course, we put it out on Twitter, Facebook, but just wanted to kind of explain that here. A quick severe thunderstorm warning there toward the Arlington area of Jacksonville a little bit earlier, but our big concern is that flash flood warning toward Tallahassee because the heavy rain's falling over areas that have already seen quite a bit of rainfall here today. As we look here, this is the last hour, about 3 inches or so, give or take, and then taking this timeline out even further here, we're looking a little bit earlier on as well, and you're seeing here as we kind of look at some of these colors where the rain fell a little bit earlier on. But as we look here, this kind of has translated a little bit off toward the north, but again, a flash flood warning for parts of Tallahassee. Now, FSU's not under this, luckily, here, but we are really under that big threat. I mean, as we look at the map, and they may technically be in this, but that's not the real point. They weren't listed, and we're really not as concerned about FSU here. As we are looking toward Tallahassee. I actually see the stadium not quite under this. It looks like they just clipped out Tallahassee, FSU barely there in Tallahassee. But again, as we look on over, you do see some of this heavier rainfall off toward the east, and continuing to watch things here toward parts of Leon County. Again, we're looking mainly south of I-10 with the biggest threat of this in toward that area. Haven't had that many warnings this summer toward Tallahassee, honestly, so just kind of want to make sure we give you the latest information on what's going on around there because just haven't had that bad of weather, honestly, in toward that region there in the Big Bend as we're looking on over. But as we go ahead and zoom back on out now, you do see some storminess in Georgia. This is outside of my television area that I cover, but you do see Abbeville here. Severe thunderstorm warning in play for Dodge and Wilcox counties. That was issued by the National Weather Service there in Peachtree City, which is near Atlanta, but again, outside of the area I cover here. But as we look down toward the south, you do see a flash flood warning in play. This flash flood warning continues at 6:30. Watching here, those rainfall amounts add on up here. Getting some very heavy rain to fall pretty quickly in parts of Leon County. This rain's still falling over those areas that have seen a lot of rain in a short period of time, and we're really seeing that area expand a little bit further off toward the north. Now, we may not stick with this too much longer, just for the fact that in flash flood situations, we're kind of just able to give you that information and then let it go generally, unless we have the level of risk escalate like to considerable. But right now here, it seems that we are seeing a little bit of breakup on the southern side of things here in the areas that have seen the worst of the rainfall, maybe close to 4 inches or so on Old St. Augustine Road. As we look toward US 27 there, though, they're still seeing some pretty good rainfall, pretty heavy rainfall. Into the north is where they're really seeing a heavier rainfall near Eagle View Drive. And Eagle View Drive here over the last hour or so, they've seen about 2 inches, give or take. So obviously, there's still a little bit more room there for that rain to fall versus down to the south where the rainfall rates are starting to drop off some, luckily. And we do have more rain to the south here, and this is something we have to watch because if we were to see more of this rain to come into the picture here and spread across, then we might get a considerable type flash flooding threat, as you see down here west of Woodville, near Woodville Ranchero Road. Getting into some of this right now, so we'll keep our eyes on this potential down toward the south. You see some lightning here in northern parts of Tallahassee there as we're looking north of I-10. That's not in that flash flood danger zone, but again, keeping our eyes on things here. Keeping our eyes on things as we zoom on over. Looking at the wind here, not really strong, maybe 40 miles an hour as we talked about, but that flash flooding danger is the big concern here. You see our areas here in this gray. I know in terms of the color table, we're talking about rain in excess of maybe 2.5 inches, 3 inches here in the last hour in these areas. You see parts of Tallahassee near FSU, not much of anything, and that's how storms can be this time of year. But this is a highly populated area with quite a bit of rainfall. The combination of the two, and then additional rainfall in parts of this area on top of this can be problematic. So we're really just concerned about those areas right now here in the gray and toward that white color, but eventually could see more areas add those totals up here as we're looking further off toward the north. So we'll have to watch for that very carefully here as that rain continues to fall in an urban area. You know, some people may be in town in Tallahassee on a Sunday, unfamiliar with some of the roads, and we want you to be very careful because some of those roads may be flood here, and you just have to make sure you turn around, don't drown, because you might not be used to how high the water could get on one or some of those area roadways. So again, watching this flash flood warning in play here. This flash flood warning continuing here till 6:30 for parts of Tallahassee, for parts of Leon County. I will zoom back on out. You see near Bradfordville there. They're getting some heavier rainfall coming into the picture now. They back things up a little bit, trying to kind of see how things have progressed. You see how the rainfall has kind of evolved here over the last hour, hour and a half, give or take. So let me go ahead and put this into motion now. I'll take off our special weather statement in the background and then kind of see how things have been kind of developing. You see the rain just hanging around there, eastern parts of Tallahassee, around and along Appalachian Parkway. So just have to be really cognizant of that. You see some different boundaries here in play as well, and that can cause some different issues here too with some of the different setups. Now we have seen that wind potential drop off as we talked about, but we were tracking a little bit higher wind potential off toward the west earlier. You can kind of see that on this mode here as things kind of turn a little bit darker. We've seen even some wind signatures here over toward East Tallahassee earlier on. As you can see here, just putting things into motion, watching the wind pattern. When you see the brighter colors in general indicate higher winds. When those colors are darker, lesser winds here in general. As we look on over, you see a little more lightning popping up here in this area. So that's indicative here of maybe some heavier rain still warning to fall to cause some issues right along US 27 Appalachian Parkway. So as we get on in here, looking over the last hour, again, we're talking about 3-4 inches in some of these spots. So I have to be careful. I look at upscale growth here, and you do see a little bit of that. Nothing really extreme, but there's still a little bit of that. So that's something to be concerned with. Into the north here, not seeing a lot, but still got to be cognizant. Got to be careful in this situation. Going to stick with it a little longer just because of the nature of things here. This flash flood warning, this isn't a situation where the rain has completely dropped on off. We're still seeing some heavier downpours, and with that lightning in here, that's indicative of maybe some intensification here, at least at times in this area. As you see some more rain coming down here toward 319 there in Tallahassee now. So again, something you don't deal with that often here toward Leon County, or really anybody in our area, maybe besides Duval this time of year. You just have to be kind of cognizant. I know we had a flood warning in Duval earlier, but it was not a flash flood warning, and that's an important difference. I'll go ahead and put up those tips here on the screen once again because I think that's important. We don't break in generally for flood warnings, but for flash flood warnings, those are the higher type of alerts here, the highest type of flood warning per se, because it's talking about a rapid water rise, a more rapid danger here, because that water just kind of comes in so quickly and causes issues on the roads, causes issues where you maybe don't expect it. It's more of a danger, so that's when you have to be more concerned, you have to be more worried here in these type of situations. So again, that is a difference there between that and a regular flood warning. I know we have flood warnings all the time here in effect really with the rivers in play, but we're not talking about a situation like that. We're talking about one that's a little more serious when you have that flash warning because it's more rapid in nature. So that's the difference here between something like an aerial flood warning or a river flood warning. We don't really break in for those. I mean, river flood warnings continuing in effect here. I mean, from Elsa still, but this is a short-term, short-fused aerial threat here as we're looking across our region for that rapid water rise. So we have to be kind of careful here in toward this region. Again, that flash wording is the key. So let me go ahead and kind of just show you that velocity mode. Once again, you don't see much wind in here, but this can sometimes help you as well to figure out if a storm is strengthening or weakening. Not always, but you see how we had some brighter colors in there at times. Seeing some lightning pop up here from time to time as well. I'm looking at the chat session. Not much else going on right now, which is good, obviously, but just keeping our eyes on the situation. As I zoom back out a little bit, you see some lightning down toward the south here near the Bloxham Cutoff Road area into toward parts of McCulloch County. No type of flash flood warning in play there. But again, you're seeing a flash flood warning in part of Leon. And I look this once again. This can be helpful here to show you that strengthening and weakening trends. We have seen a little bit more of the intensity fall off in the last few frames, it seems, which is good here. But we still have enough of that heavy rain in that area, in that highly populated zone, that we have to be kind of cognizant here. So I'll stick with this for a little bit longer. We'll check on those power outage numbers right now. Power outage.us here. I'm going to pull that up to see, because I was mentioning earlier we had a little bit of power outage issues toward Jacksonville here, but those type of situations really happen all the time here, even in non-severe storms. So I'm curious, this is a non-severe storm, even though we have that flash flood warning in play. I'm curious to see if the power outage numbers are higher in Leon than they are in Duval even here. They very well could be here, and at this point they're pretty close actually, but we do have Jacksonville winning out on that a little bit there. So let's go ahead and kind of see the system now. The wind potential not too big of a threat here today. It doesn't look like. We'll be watching here as we look tomorrow, maybe Tuesday here as well for some of that. But as we look toward Duval, 327 customers in the dark, toward Leon, 70 customers. So very little in the way of power outages overall. That's good news, obviously. But we'll go ahead and pop back up our other viewpoint here as we watch things, as we watch this situation. We keep you covered, obviously. Checking some information behind the scenes right now. Looking at some different sources. I do want to pop up our camera toward the Stark area. We'll kind of see what's going on in toward the Stark area, because you have had a little bit of that rain kind of dripping out there, but not too much overall, which is obviously a good thing considering the area of rivers we've been dealing with. You can see that just barely. We don't have a flash flood warning here, so let me go ahead and take that off, because I don't want to confuse anybody. There's no flash flood warning here around the Bradford County area, but we are on for a flash flood warning toward Tallahassee. But just a shot here in the Stark area. Not much going on right now, which is good, obviously. As we go ahead and pop back up some of our other systems, you see I have it zoomed in real tight there toward parts of Tallahassee with that flooding going on there. Just got to be careful. You see over North Central Florida, there's not much at all in terms of that rain in Stark, Gainesville, just the drifts as we saw, but down toward I-75 in Marion County, a little more robust actions. So this is something to watch for Ocala here. We are seeing some strengthening, so not completely out of the question that we couldn't get a warning here toward Ocala if this were to kind of evolve here over the next couple frames. But off toward the west, I know it's new significant weather advisory just coming in. This here is in play now until it looks like about 6:30 or so. Winds in excess of 40 possible. It's on the northern flank here, actually, as we're looking more north of I-10. So that's something to kind of consider here. But let me go ahead and go on over toward our other source. You can see here what's happening. You see a little bit of that wind enhancement axis showing up now, getting away from areas that have seen quite a bit of rain maybe, and helping these winds maybe try to reach down toward the surface. So this is another candidate here for a severe thunderstorm warning if we were to get this to intensify a little bit more. Not there yet, but we'll keep our eyes on it, of course, in the weather center. So something to watch out for as we look here maybe towards Centerville Road in here. That's one of the areas that'll be pretty close at least to this wind, if not getting under this. Also here, Sunny Hill Road. You kind of get the idea. Spring Hill Road there as we're around Muskogee. But as we look back out a little bit, you do see here some of this rain and wind as we go between a different mode of the Doppler radar. Significant weather advisory now at 6:30 for parts of Marion County. So let me go ahead and go back down there now. We'll see what's going on. No type of warning in play. We wouldn't be on for Marion generally, but since we're on already, we'll go ahead and talk about you guys there toward Marion County with a new significant weather advisory. We had one for 40 to 45 mile-an-hour gust in play till 5:45, but now a new significant weather advisory here. This is for the potential of 45 to 55 mile-per-hour gust for a nasty storm near Ocala moving north at 10 miles an hour. Excessive cloud-to-ground lightning, nickel-sized hail also threats here as well. So something to watch out for in the Ocala area. Definitely a lot of lightning occurring with this storm west of I-75. So that's something to watch out for could be a candidate to go severe. As we look back over the last 12 hours, not much rain in this area, so a little bit of an untapped atmosphere here. And some of the models were showing some later type of moisture around, so that's something to watch here as we're looking toward Marion County here, maybe into Alachua County as well later on in the timeline. We'll just have to wait and see though. Here as we zoom back on out a little bit, you see again the reason we're on right now, a flash flood warning for parts of Leon County. Looking back over the last hour, you see some areas here in that red, in that maroon, around 3 inches, give or take, depending on what color table, what way we look at things through the radar. And you do see, I pointed this out earlier, but there's the stadium. I'll put a little red box over it. That stadium there, Doak Campbell Stadium at FSU. They're not under the flash flood warning. They literally here in the last hour, according to radar, have seen no rain. Maybe a trace, something like that in there, but overall not that big of a threat. So Tallahassee, of course, it's just you have to split things up sometimes. Some spots in town get really nothing. Other spots here get 3-4 inches of rain. So you have to be really cognizant about that threat here. And zoom back out once again here. I'm still watching things around Tallahassee. We'll go ahead and see the radar once again. Those rainfall rates are dropping off here as we go over toward the TOH radar there. You zoom in, you see there around US 319 some heavier rain, but the areas that have seen some of the worst of this, the rain's kind of moving away, not as heavy again as it was, but still pretty nasty as we go over to storm total amounts now. You see here some areas according to radar now over 5 inches, so that's a problem obviously in an urban area. Old St. Augustine Road around 5 inches according to Doppler. Again, off toward the stadium there. Maybe 600 according to this mode of our radar. So again, a big difference there. Maybe a little bit of rain over toward FSU at this moment, but not much of a threat at all as we're talking about just different parts of Tallahassee, different type of storylines. FAMU under this flash flood warning, FSU's not. So that's a key takeaway here indeed as we zoom out on some of our different modes here once again. We're watching things toward Ocala. I think I'm going to stick with it for Ocala for another frame or two, just so we don't have a situation where we think we need to come back on real quick for Ocala, just for the nature of things here. Sometimes, again, things can pop up pretty quickly this time of year. We saw it toward Jacksonville earlier. I just felt the situation didn't really require us to come on the air for that because it was a very isolated situation with a downburst potential, which this time of year, those downburst potentials can happen quite a bit, and we don't really want to break in for those a lot because they're just so short-fused in nature. By the time you break in, a lot of times they're already over, and they're so just isolated, and sometimes they don't even amount to much at all. So that's something you have to keep in mind. Other times, though, they can be pretty serious. They can look like a tornado occurred, so you have to bear that in mind too, of course. But in this situation, it doesn't seem too impressive as we're looking toward the north. Now, as we get down toward radar scope here, I want to go under the hood on our Doppler technology and see parts of Marion County. The winds here a little bit further up here, a little bit more aloft, 34 miles an hour, give or take. But we did see the higher reflectivity values, which are indicative of maybe a stronger sail here, some stronger acts. And again, west to 75, going to be trying to cross over to 75 here in just the next little bit. Going to be near that Ocala airport here too. So just something to keep in mind as we're watching things here move across parts of that region. Again, watching things carefully. Let's go back on over now toward our other viewpoint. You do see here hail maybe occurring with this nickel size is what the Weather Service is talking about. We've seen something like that with the storm toward Jacksonville earlier on. You see her hail button kind of showing where some of this hail potential might be right now. In that turquoise color, we're talking about maybe a half-inch size hail type situation there occurring. So something to watch out for. You don't see much else here popping on up in terms of that potential, though. That's good news, obviously. As we look back over toward the Big Bend, you see things kind of breaking up overall there in toward Leon County. You saw how things are a little more robust and now a little bit less organized. So that will help with the drainage issues that can arise, and I'm sure are arising in some of those spots there. Again, watching things in Marion County now. You see here, I bet this up, you've seen that upscale growth pretty much in the storminess over the last little bit. The intensification here, watching things within radar echoes, no rotation really. As we look here, zoom on out some, There's no formal risk of severe weather in play in our area. Now, there's a marginal risk as we get off toward Jackson, a slight risk as we get off toward areas there in Kansas and areas around, it looks like Colorado, Oklahoma, Texas as well, but nothing too robust there. Overall, we're not tracking a situation where we have necessarily any type of tornado threats in play. That doesn't mean you can't get a quick spin up, of course, but as we look back on over here, watching things in Marion County, watching that storminess has been strengthening here gradually over the last few frames. The reason I don't really want to go away because hail size has continued to kind of tick on up here, looking at some of our different metrics on this. So I just want to bear that in mind, of course, as we're looking toward Interstate 75 in Marion County. Zooming back on out, once again, we're watching things carefully there to see if we get some type of warning to develop here with that, a warning type of storm. So let's go ahead and look back though up toward the north. Now you see some lighter rain toward areas of Baker County, Charlton, Nassau, Camden County as well there. Nothing too robust, more of that rain that you get here after things have fallen apart for today. So that's the good news. But we still have some untapped areas here with the atmospheric parameters in place. You just have to kind of bear that in mind here as we're looking down toward the south. Look over the last 12 hours or so, you see the spots that have seen the rain and have not seen the rain. Again, over toward Port of Leon County, there's some of the highest rainfall today, and with that being such an urban area falling so quickly, that's when you have problems. You do see off toward Liberty County, we've seen a pretty good amount of rain there as well, but that's not an urban area, and you're not going to have that issue arise as much there with the flooding potential. So that's good, obviously, as we continue here, as we continue on. We're looking at some different things. Again, the rain kind of breaking up overall there. We are seeing maybe higher wind values though as we get up toward areas of Grady County. So that's something we have to keep our mind on here. We have to keep in mind as we're looking here toward, it looks like as I get in here tight, Sunny Hill Road, as we were just talking about a few minutes ago, maybe getting some 50-mile-an-hour winds, give or take there. Looking at upscale growth, you're going to have trouble seeing a lot there, but maybe some intensification as we've seen within the velocity scans. So pretty close to being severe here in parts of Grady County. Haven't actually had an official severe storm. We had a flash flood warning when we came on, of course, but not an official severe storm. And as we look down toward the south, seeing some interesting pixels, but nothing lining up with those. Some of our wind values are showing higher, but you have to get rain kind of to exist with the velocity pixels here. So that's something to kind of bear in mind as well. So again, watching things carefully. I think we're going to take a quick break. We're going to keep this going for a little bit longer, just for the fact that storm in Marion County is pretty close to becoming severe. Watching that other storm there toward Grady County as well on the edge. So we'll keep you updated back here in about 2.5 minutes with more weather information. Back here in the Weather Center, still watching the Doppler radar. We're seeing some storms just under severe limits, so that's why we're keeping the stream going a little bit longer to make sure we don't get any warnings here issued by the Weather Service in Tallahassee for that area around Grady County or that area in Marion County issued by the office in Jacksonville. So we're just kind of keeping our eyes on things here. Want to make sure nothing happens on us as we go between different modes of our Doppler radar. And in fact, I do have the Jacksonville radar pulled up here for that area of storminess in Marion County. So let's go ahead and zoom on in here near Martell. You can see here some wind potential, nothing extreme it doesn't look like, but we are looking higher up, so it's harder to know exactly what could be happening down toward the surface. We do have these DBZ values that are pretty high here and some frequent lightning here in the area as well. DBZ values indicative of this heavy downpours, maybe some smaller hail mixing in here as well. So that's what we look at in terms of the color scale on the radar. We're talking here with the purples, maybe about 57, 58 DBZs, and that gets you there in that purple color. So something to watch. You can even see the storminess off toward the west off Jacksonville radar, the Tallahassee type of storminess there. So that's something to kind of bear in mind here as well as we watch different things, look at different color tables, monitor the situation as it does progress, as it does evolve here. That flash flood warning still till 6:30 for parts of Leon County. And then again, the reason Roy is kind of sticking with this, a lot of times we'll just go off in these flash flood situations, but because I'm seeing these storms still kind of strengthen in some spots, I don't want to leave you quite yet because don't want to have a warning here and then kind of have a situation where it's pretty hard to get on. So as we zoom on in, because by the time the damage is done, it's maybe just 5 minutes into the warning, but it's already a little too late to jump on. So again, watching things here in Grady County. You see here winds 50, 53 miles an hour, a little aloft, but once we get to about 58, they would pull the trigger on a warning. They might even pull it a little bit lower. But we're in a pretty rural spot here as we're looking west of Metcalf, so that's something to watch out for. Maybe for Thomas County, there's tracks on off here over the next little bit. So right now, winds in that 50 mile an hour range, so are pretty good here in parts of Grady County, Georgia. And that as we kind of look on over here, that is co-located with the rain, so that's what you would expect here with some of this wind maybe reaching the surface. That could knock out a little bit of power. Nothing extreme, wouldn't be on for that normally, but we have the flash flood warning where there's still some lightning occurring here. And honestly, even on this mode, we're actually seeing the rainfall rates so up decently here. I mean, this isn't a complete end to the threat as we still have some decent downpours here in this area. So something to watch for sure. We're keeping you up to date on this Sunday. Of course, we'll be here tomorrow morning with that full weather update, looking ahead, high rain chances here as we get Monday and Tuesday before looking here later in the timeline. We'll see how things kind of go further away from that. Though with the rain around, with the cloud cover around, you do have those cooler temperatures, which obviously is helpful here as well. It's kind of a give and take this time of year with either cooler temperatures or seeing those warmer temperatures and less rainfall. Either cooler temperatures and more rain, warmer temperatures, less rain, depending on that cloud cover there as well here in your vicinity. As we get down toward Marion County, again, you see things, you see some maybe increasing wind potential. It's hard to say for sure as we've been going between the different radar modes, obviously, there. And then we're watching things toward Grady County in Georgia there, west of Metcalf as well. It's just switching between different modes of our Doppler radar. If I don't get a warning or anything that says we're about to have a warning next few minutes, I think we'll wrap it up here at the top of the hour. But I just want to stick with you here while we have some type of threat in play. And didn't mean I might not have to break in later on. It's just a situation here where things maybe not quite as strong as they were. Sometimes our hail indicators will tell you this. As you saw here, maybe a little bit stronger of a storm there toward Grady County a few minutes ago, and our hail numbers have gone down a little, sometimes indicative of the updrafts here. This is indicative of the storm strength in general here, as that's something to kind of keep in mind. As you see here earlier toward Jacksonville, we had 2.64 inches of rain there, most of that falling between 4 and 5 p.m. at a private weather station there off of Sesame Boulevard, just north of Terry Parker Drive, south in Arlington and Jacksonville. But that was a situation where it wasn't rapid enough wasn't heavy enough to prompt a flash flood warning, which obviously is good. Not enough for us to come on with that severe thunderstorm warning because we had more of a downburst type signature, very isolated there, maybe briefly severe, but not causing a lot of power outages. Have to watch that threat here though. We're still watching things toward Marion County, watching things toward Grady County, watching the Leon County flash flood warning that goes for another 30 minutes or so. And again, we'll be here in the Weather Center to break in if necessary. Just watching things here toward the Big Bend Sunday evening, seeing some different reports here, seeing what can come in here to the chat session. Haven't had any reports here in recent minutes of the heavy rainfall. We had some gustier winds here earlier on toward Tallahassee with some of this there as we were looking in parts of town. So going to go ahead and leave with a view of the TOH radar right now here. That rain still coming down some, not as concentrated though. We talked about how that was kind of breaking up some, but it's still coming down enough to maybe add to some of those issues as we watch those other storms there toward Grady, toward Marion as well. If we need to break back in, depending on the overall population and damage threats, we will. If not, I'll be back tomorrow morning here from the Weather Center. Thanks so much for tuning in.